Hello and welcome along. My name is Rob Taylor from Plan Grow Do, and we help traditional B2B businesses really grasp more confidence, process and structure to succeed in a modern sales world. A huge part of that, as we're about to explore and uncover, is how you can behave as a seller more early in the buyer's journey and in the sales process. And to help with that, we have to discuss something called content. Don't worry, it's not just marketing's job. And that's what we're here to uncover with a very special guest. I'm delighted he's here to join us all the way from Cleveland, Ohio, from the home of the Content Marketing Institute. She's the research director over there. Lisa Beats, good morning to you. How are you? And give yourself a little introduction, please. It'd be great to hear from you.
Good morning, Rob. Thank you for having me today. As you mentioned, I'm the research director at Content Marketing Institute. I have been with CMI since the beginning, 11 years now. It's been a wild ride. Our company was founded by Joe Pulizzi, who we call the Godfather of content marketing. Our business was acquired. We are now under the Informa Engage umbrella of Informa, but Joe still visits us every year at Content Marketing World. That's our annual event held every September here in Cleveland, Ohio.
Super. And I'm a big fan of Joe's work. Joe Pulizzi's Epic Content Marketing was one of the first books that really opened my eyes to the power of content and what it meant more in what was, I mean, that must have been 5 years ago I first read that, I think. And it's really opened my eyes to what modern marketing, modern sales activity is. And I guess for those listening or watching, could you just briefly define what is content and why is it relevant to business, B2B in this context? Why is it important even for those people?
Okay. The first thing I thought I would do today, Rob, is give you the technical definition of content marketing. So I'm going to actually read that to you. So content marketing, CMI defines it as a strategic marketing approach focused on creating and distributing valuable, relevant, and consistent content to attract and retain a clearly defined audience, and ultimately to drive profitable customer action. So when we talk about content and content marketing, some of the key words in that definition I just read you are creating content that is valuable, relevant, and consistent. And we're talking about content that is all those things to the customer, not to you, not to your company, but to your customer. And other keywords in that definition are drive profitable customer action. We're not doing this for fun. We have an end goal. We want to create brand awareness. We want to build relationships that ultimately result in sales and long-term profitable business relationships. So that's our definition there.
No, I think it's good to, and I wrote down the exact same word you did: valuable, relevant, consistent, because this doesn't just happen overnight. Success in this field isn't a silver bullet, is it? And I think clearly defined audience is key, because I think too often, perhaps in B2B, we notice, certainly from our experience working with organizations over here, that there's that perception that anyone's a customer, or everyone is my customer. And in reality, Mr. Anybody or Mrs. Everybody don't exist. And we have to take some time, don't we, to define a customer group. Just because we have that opportunity to speak to a lot of people, we have to create personas, right? And identify more about that. What's your experience there?
Yes, definitely. We have a saying at CMI, and you've heard it probably, many content marketers use this phrase. If your content is for everyone, it is for no one. You really have to have that narrowly defined audience. You can't just creating content is a very time, labor, resource intensive process. To throw it out in the wind is not productive. You need that closely targeted audience. Perhaps it's built up, as you mentioned, through personas or market research, but you do need to be directing your content toward that very narrow audience. Definitely.
Yeah. And I think there is that almost allure of platforms, digital platforms, that just because you can shout to a lot of people, shouldn't mean, buy my stuff. I think I noticed one of your statistics in the research. It said that I think it was 61% of content has a promotional theme. So we can't quite get over that yet, that content needs to be more than just selling. I guess advert creation. It needs to be more than that, does it?
Yes, definitely. And in terms of, the B2B journey, creating that brand awareness, how do we do that? Ads are great. Advertising serves its purpose, but ads are fleeting. Content is content. When you do all this work to finally drive traffic and get people to come to your website, to learn more about you, to hopefully eventually end up in a purchasing decision, you need content at that site, informative, relevant content.
Yeah, exactly. And you touched on a few bits there. It's at the right time of the buying stage. There's some research and insight that we share that it takes 5 to 12 contacts to make a sale. That content isn't just digital, and indeed you should tweak its theme to match that customer journey. I guess we break that buyer's journey down into 4 phases. You've probably got something similar, from unaware, aware, consideration, and decision. And often we see the B2B organizations and salespeople will operate at the consideration and decision phase and forget everything beforehand. But if it's taking those 5 to 12 contacts to make a sale, what is that awareness content, you think? What works at that early stage in a B2B setting that B2B sales folk can get a grasp of?
One of the key content types that's useful in the creating brand awareness stage are blog posts, your corporate blog. If you're out on social or you're out advertising, you have to drive that traffic somewhere. If you're driving it to your site, your blog is a great place to educate your audience as to who you are. Helpful blog posts are very helpful in the early stages of the buying journeys. Even content forums like, say, a podcast, if you have clients who are guests on podcasts, for example, anything we do in terms of earned media, getting PR attention, anything we can do to create that brand awareness at the top of the funnel.
And is that do you see more and more that is the responsibility of the individual, not just the sort of corporate banner, but the ability and responsibility of the salesperson, the sales team, an individual level? What can they do to have that? Because it's great that organizations can create things. What can an individual start to do at those early stages of a buying journey?
I think one of the keys is to be working with marketing. I think, one of the things we said, Rob, was, well, if sales says, oh, marketing does that, well, sure, marketing has many, many roles in terms of content creation. I think one of the most important things a salesperson or a sales team can do is just communicate frequently with marketing. Sit down, talk about some shared goals. Develop a plan. What types of content, as a sales rep talking to marketing, this is the type of content we need. Do you have it? Sometimes they're not even aware that it's already created, or if not, is this something we can work together to define, to create? I think it's all about working relationships early on.
And I think there's a huge part of that about putting the customer first, because there's this, I'm sure you see it in organizations you speak to, there is a silo mentality that still exists. It's sales and it's marketing, and never the two shall meet. But I think if we have to create, as we should be creating, customer focused solutions and services, don't the two have to speak more candidly? And that feedback loop has to be created.
Yes.
Have you noticed any good practices in terms of creating that joined up feedback between sales and marketing? What works?
As I mentioned, Rob, I think it's all about communication, regular meetings. There has to be someone on that sales team who takes the lead here with that someone in marketing, and perhaps they're meeting with 1 or 2 members of their team. They alone will decide how far out the people involved should be, but have a regular schedule of meetings. Maybe that's once a week, maybe it's twice a month or once a month, but be on the same page in terms of shared topics that are important to your audience and types of content, and even sales being aware of the editorial calendar that's in place, anything you can do to get that communication going, to get the two teams aligned. And regular meetings, I think, are key to that.
I had a little chuckle to myself when you said about editorial calendars in place. That assumes that people have that in the first place.
Yes.
Yeah, whether they should or not is or whether they
Well,
should
there's a great place for sales and marketing to work together on an editorial calendar. Let's sit down and develop one. What are our hot topics? What do we need to be focused on every week, every, bi-weekly, monthly, yearly?
Yeah, it's fascinating one. And I think it helped grasp that responsibility, because sales would then have to feed back. This is what my customers in the field are telling me. Here's what's missing. Let's build content to answer that problem. Again, I'm looking at your research here that says that a good chunk, 68% of respondents agreed that content teams create content for specific stages of the buyer's journey, but only 40% then agreed that sales teams know how to use it. So there's a bit of an educational piece potentially here, that those that get content and marketing really get it, and those that don't, they're not being brought up to speed. So, I asked, what can salespeople do? What can marketing teams do to really break down that customer journey and show we've got this content here, you might want to use this when? It might be a similar answer to before, but what can marketing do to support this alignment as well?
Again, it's just that communication and that constant and follow-up. Part of communication is follow-up. You're not just going to have a meeting and everybody goes off their own separate way, but marketing following up. Hey, how's it going? Has it been productive? Are you using it? Maybe keeping on top of each other a bit.
Yeah, I think, I made notes before we started to chat, and we suggested perhaps joined up pipeline reviews might be a helpful point to stimulate that conversation, because if you're telling a salesperson to go and have a meeting to discuss content, it might not really tick their boxes. I should be out on the road, I should be on the phones. Yeah. So if I can fit it into, it becomes more of an agenda point for a joined up pipeline review, perhaps then I might be forced to think of things that fit in more to a sales process, not my buyer's journey. And also, I made a note there about how we can help join it up and become more the responsibility of the salesperson. We've noticed in large companies as well as small. It'd be interesting to know your experiences here. Marketing tend to be measured on list building. And then the success of the sales team also seems to be measured on the same list without any sort of qualification. And I just wonder if you've experienced anything like that, where the success of a sales team is measured against unqualified leads, where we have content at the top, get the white paper, get the 10 best things, whatever it is, and organizations class that as a qualified lead. Whereas we think there might be more opportunity to further qualify that through content and supporting content. But it'd be nice, I guess, for marketing and sales teams to be measured on consistent metrics, not that of, well, that's marketing's measurement. That's not fair on us, the sales team, because that creates more of a resistance. I don't know if that's anything you've experienced before.
Yes, I can't speak to it, based on personal conversations, but I can tell you that you're absolutely right in that in our recent sales enablement research, we did find that sales and marketing does not often have the shared goals and the shared KPI metrics. I think maybe you saw that in the sales enablement report. There's definitely room for improvement there. Perhaps if the two teams had some type of shared metrics, or that at least if there was a better understanding of what the other is being measured against.
Because that, I guess, that creates that teamwork, doesn't it? I know you're measured against this. I can help you get there, and you can help me get here. Because I guess if salespeople and the sales departments are busy, and there isn't a reason for them to use content in the first place, they're going to be hesitant to adopting it. Exactly. And it's not very customer focused, because customers need this. They're more well researched. We know that over 90% of buy decisions start digitally. But in terms of the more traditional sense as well, it'd be good, Lisa, just to sort of talk about different forms of content, and that not just being digital. So for those that are more traditional in their approach and struggle to grasp content and very broadly sort of bundle that in it's the social bucket or the digital bucket. Content can be physical too, right?
Yes, most definitely. Mhm.
And what sort of good practice have you got around physical content? How can we look to adopt that?
Are you thinking in terms, Rob, of content that is perhaps distributed at an in-person event?
Yeah, so
Or
how you turn up maybe like events and brochures at specific times of the customer's journey,
yes.
where they sit. How can we start to embrace, if people are digital hesitant, how can we start to build in more traditional ways to support that journey into content for those that are more traditional?
Yes, sure. Like even, pass along materials, say the materials that you might present at your booth at an event, or you're calling on customers and you need to leave your leave behinds, or even direct mail, which still may be applicable in a certain situation. Just making sure that your content materials not only are visually appealing, of course, but also that they are, again, customer focused. I mean, if you're passing along a brochure and it's just a bunch of pictures of your products, what's in it for the customer? I mean, at least include some type of element that's telling some type of story or showing somebody using something or how it benefited a customer. I mean, you don't have to get into a full-blown case study on a product piece, but you can at least include some type of helpful information for the customer rather than it just being all about products.
Yeah, look how good we are. This is how great we are. Don't you want to buy my stuff? And it's like, oh, no, I don't now.
Exactly. I mean, and about us, what about me? The customer is wondering. And, when we talk about physical products too, Rob, let's remember two things like magazines. Print magazines, or even print books. I mean, if there's a thought leader in your company who is so inclined or can hire a ghostwriter, books make great content marketing. It's all about building that thought leadership. Let that person write a book about their area of expertise.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, because we have just published a book called Modern Sales Leadership, just for that very reason.
Excellent.
We're firm believers. It's a big part of our methodology that the aim of the business owner, the salesperson, the sales director should be that of a leading voice. You have to believe in something, and I think sharing that through platforms that are available and the publishing of a book, it's a great validation. I think it's good third-party reference. It positions you. I'm a published author now. It's a great thing to have to share, because there's great value in the books as well. So it sort of works top of funnel, but then it also works as a standalone product, which is great. I think books and physical is great. We were having the discussion, me and Steve, my business partner, that we worry that we might have gone too digital, and we might have to get back to a bit more traditional now that the world's getting back to normal, a bit more face-to-face. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong in a good bit of a physical brochure done right.
Yes.
And I think people forget that. They might see it as expensive, for example. But like I say, if you put the customer on there and make the hero of your customer, it certainly has its place.
Yeah, definitely.
Good. And I was looking at the research, actually. Let me see if we can just dig it up about content themes. Let me have a look at this. It's a fascinating report. I have to put the links to it in the chat. It'd be or in the comments. But there was something that leapt out at me. It was basically suggesting that although most of the content that's created appears to be promotional in use, as in buy my stuff, it is almost here's about us, buy it. There's huge opportunity to step away from it being advertising, and actually it is more informative, it is more educational. I saw podcasts on the rise, as you mentioned earlier on. I saw webinars was one of the most popular and successful pieces of content. Could you just inform us and fill us in a bit more about webinars? Why are they so useful? Where do they fit? And is it a COVID fad, or is it here to stay?
Well, webinars were popular before COVID, but we really saw their use increase during COVID. With the lack of in-person events and face-to-face, webinars presented a great opportunity for demand gen for people who were putting them out. But beyond just simple demand gen, it really is a great opportunity, again, to create that thought leadership, having people within your organization host a webinar, be a guest on a webinar, sharing their expertise. Webinars came in very high, and I think we'll see them stay high.
Does it work at a specific part of the buyer's journey, do you think, a webinar?
I think it's more perhaps middle funnel, maybe even down toward consideration, but certainly can be used to build brand awareness as well. I mean,
that's interesting. So what makes you say it's more a consideration phase? Because it might be something that a lot of people jump on as almost awareness.
Yes,
Your webinar for awareness. Yeah, but if you're misaligned and you're actually at consideration, that's an important differentiation, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm going to back up for a second and talk about myself as a consumer of content. And I'm having webinars being marketed to me all the time. And there's something that clicks in that helps me decide which webinar I want to attend. And if I see a webinar on a subject that I've been thinking about a lot, or maybe I know that I'm interested in a new technology of some sort, and all of a sudden I'm being marketed to with this webinar on a particular piece of technology, maybe that's where I'm talking about the consideration stage. At that point, I might be a hot lead. I think it just depends on.
Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah, that makes sense. And also on the content that marketers create for use by sales teams, the report suggests that emails and email templates are still incredibly popular. Yeah. And I think there's a misconception that emails have had their day. Do you think emails are still as relevant, more so? Where does that sit, do you think, in a salesperson's kit, in a B2B's toolkit? Where do emails sit?
I think that emails are still highly relevant indeed. And there are even new technologies that allow you to embed a video in your email. I mean, that's another technology that we see some sales folks using. Email. I personally don't feel that email is going away anytime soon. I think it's still a great way to communicate with your target.
Yeah, it seems like these social platforms come and go, but email's like the boring grandparent that's just always there. Whereas these platforms come and go. Right? I'm a huge fan of email. I think it's totally got its place, but I think it comes back to relevance again. Know your customer. Don't spam everybody. Don't send everybody everything, but send them what they've opted in for and what might be relevant to them. I guess it's
exactly that valuable, relevant content.
Exactly. Yeah, which comes back to the purpose of content marketing in the first place, right? I wanted to touch a bit more on the perceptions thing, if you don't mind, about what you think stops organizations embracing content. I guess more so the B2B traditional businesses. What are they scared of, or why are they not allowing teams to embrace it, or at least test it? What's your, because I've got some thoughts on it, but I'd be keen to know from your team's perspective, why aren't we getting it more as an industry?
I think it depends on the organization itself. Some may be afraid. In some organizations, you still have that traditional sales mindset, and it's just firmly entrenched. Maybe it starts at the top, and maybe it could be a lack of understanding. It could be perhaps they don't want to invest the money, the resources. They don't know enough about content to get behind it and to commit and to really believe in its power. And we hear all the time, we just don't have the time. So we have that classic fallback on, we just don't have the time. But content marketing it's a commitment and an investment. So if you're going to start developing content, getting it out there, distributing it, and really measuring it also, and really making the most of it, you need that commitment and you need that investment.
Yeah, we hear the same. It's like, yeah, if we introduce new ways for sellers or sales managers to engage customers earlier, yes, through social or whatever, through digital means, we don't do that here, or it doesn't work in this industry, or it's not like that for our customers, or no, we don't believe in that, or you're right, I don't have the time. But we have to flip that, don't we, and suggest that people don't have the time to ignore it anymore. Things have changed. And surely if businesses need to stay aligned with buyers, they have to embrace it, don't they?
They do. They have to. You'll be left behind.
Yeah, we speak to sales directors where they'd be happy for new entrants to the workplace, early 20s, mid 20s, whatever it might be. And they're happy for them to sit on the phone for the morning, just cold calling, because they're happy for that to happen, because that's what they're used to, because that's what they've always done, and that's what they will always do. But this younger, sort of, I class myself just on there, I'm 37 now, I'm just on the younger side. We want to be able to engage digitally. And if the same sales director sees the staff on the computers, writing emails, connecting on social, using digital content, they're always deemed as time wasting or like shouted at for doing it. And I think there's a real cultural perception from these traditional B2B businesses that that's not how we do it. And what would you say about, or to them, if they're in front of you now, to say, change your perception because,
Yes.
what is the answer to that question, and how do you start to measure it? Because measurement is going to be a huge help for us all to help businesses overcome their blockers. So how can we start measuring it? And what would you say to these directors who just don't believe in it?
Yes, you have to have a change of mindset, and you do have to listen to your younger employees. If not, they're going to go elsewhere. You just described great young sales reps who, if they're not given the opportunity within these organizations, they're going to go elsewhere. So first of all, you're going to lose talent. That's a key thing right there. So you have to, to have good marketing, you need good people. You don't want to lose your talent to other companies that do believe in new methods and new ways. So that would be the first thing. And in terms of measurement, measurement is a tough subject area, Rob, as you well know. So in terms of measurement, I think that goes back to your strategy. If you're going to invest in content marketing, you need to start out with some type of strategy. It doesn't have to be this big, huge, overwhelming strategy, but you need something to serve. You need a goalpost, you need guidelines. Make that part of your strategy. Your strategy will cover what types of content will we create, how will we distribute it, and how will we measure it. And the measurement is going to involve a lot of conversation, a lot of brain power, figuring out what works best for us. It could be something as simple as starting out with Google Analytics, starting to track your website traffic, starting to track your bounce rate. How many people, if you use gates in front of content pieces, registration forms, you can start to count how many people downloaded our content. And also you need to be measuring how engaged people were. And this isn't just about numbers and social shares and likes and fans. It's about the quality of the people who did engage. Maybe it was a small percentage of your target, but if they end up being engaged prospects, you start to nurture them with higher levels of content, and they're in your pipeline. So those are just a few ideas of ways to get started with measurement.
Yeah, I think to help shift that mindset, you touched on one very early there when you said staff will leave. Yeah, there's a different shift to the younger workforce, isn't there? They want a business that works for them as well. It's not just there to have a job for life. They'll move on. Allow me to engage. It's there's a statistic that we found for another session that we did that suggested that 80% of B2B interactions between customers and suppliers will be digital in 3 years. 80%. So if you're not active, you've got 2.5 years to catch up. So we're expecting big things to happen either way.
Exactly.
Things have to start changing. I mentioned 2025 though. What does the future look like from your perspective, Lisa, with content, the buyer's journey? What are the big changes that's coming down the track that we should all be aware of?
I think technology is going to continue to play a huge role in automating processes in marketing. I think we'll see a much greater focus on customer experience as the next few years go by. Consumers today, buyers, they want to be able to find what they're looking for when they need it. If your content's not there when they're looking for it, they're going to move right on to your competitor, or they're going to find it where they need it. So, you need to be active, you need to be out there, you need to be on social, you need to be paying attention to things like organic search, maybe even paid search, organic social media, maybe you're engaging even in paid social media. Nothing wrong with paid. And earned media, maybe through PR, maybe through, I think we talked about this a while ago, guest spots. Maybe you start to be a guest on podcasts, or you start to write guest posts. You're getting your name out there. So, as I said, I think technology will play a huge role in the years to come. It already is. A lot of our content creation processes now are being automated. We have workflow automation tools and so forth, tools that make it easier to collaborate on content. So say you're having these marketing teams and your sales teams, and they want to start to collaborate on content pieces. We have the technology now that makes those processes easier. And Rob, we do have an event that is focused on content technology. We put it on every March in San Diego, California, and it is called Content Tech Summit. And if your audience is interested in learning more, we also offer on-demand sessions after the event, and that is at content.tech.
Brilliant. Great. I'll check that out, and I'll be sure to put that in the comments as well. That'd be great. So yeah, send me all those links over, and I'll share that to the networks. That'd be great. It's interesting, isn't it, about the customers wanting their own. They want to inform themselves. They almost don't want to speak to people anymore. And I think it's a huge barrier that we have to get over, especially in B2B, where traditional business to business was door knocking, it was brochure dropping, it was network events. And even in those spaces now, it has shifted. The amount of decision makers that are on LinkedIn, for example, the amount of decision makers that are millennials. COVID has probably accelerated what was happening anyway. It's just we've now got a steeper learning curve for some, I think. And I guess just on that one, in terms of the learning curve, where can people start that education? Because if they can't get it yet from their organization, where can they start to self-study and start to absorb some learnings about content?
I think our Content Marketing Institute website is a wonderful resource. We have all kinds of information at our site for people who are beginners all the way to advanced and sophisticated content marketers. Please check out our website. We have information on how to get started in content marketing. We have glossaries, content marketing term definitions, how to get started with a strategy. You name it, it's there on our website, contentmarketinginstitute.com.
Brilliant. And because I think during our little chat here, we have certainly thrown a few statistics around. There's just one more that I'd like to share that hopefully might open people's minds to the potential here, that it's 90% of buyers say that online content has a major impact on purchasing decisions. It's everyone, isn't it? It's the whole population say online content is important.
Yes.
If that doesn't start to shift mindset, mind share towards content, I don't know what is.
Exactly.
I don't know what is. So Lisa, it'd be great just to give our listeners and viewers, I guess, some little takeaways. I often like to end these conversations with a few tips from my guests around what they can do practically to start engaging in what we've spoken about. So for, I guess, sales execs, sales managers, or even CEOs and directors who might be watching, what can B2B business do today to start grasping content?
Well, I would say sit down, have a meeting, talk about, sometimes we start off with, with a content audit. Do we have the right types of content? What do we have? What do we need? What's missing? How can we get started with just some simple pieces? What are the biggest gaps? I think identifying those gaps is key. So sitting down, identifying your content gaps, and then making a plan for getting whatever type of content you need created, making a plan for getting it going. Do you have internal resources? Do you have an internal writer? Do you need to maybe outsource? If so, if you need to find freelance writers, how will you do that? Who within your company is going to take the lead to vet out some candidates? Get those first few pieces of content rolling. If you have a blog and you haven't written any blog posts lately, please give your blog some attention. Get on a regular schedule, even if you're just posting one blog post every 2 weeks on a Friday. Be consistent, get it up there, get it out there. If you need to hire a freelancer to ghostwrite, go ahead and do that. There are so many good freelance writers out there who are just waiting to help their B2B clients get more visibility. So I think your blog is a great place to start. What else can I say, Rob?
I think that's a good start.
Get rolling, get that momentum going.
Yeah. I think that's the get started. Yeah, the amount of companies I've spoken to where I ask them, "Have you got a blog?" or "Where's your news?" and they'll point me to a link, and it's not been updated for 2.5 years. It's like, how is that anyway relevant? How is it relevant? How is it showing me about you? I need to know about you as a person. That we've had feedback from many major companies where they say the most popular page on their analytics, so they've taken that step, is to look at the About Us page to find the staff. They want to know the people behind the curtain, but then they won't allow the people behind the curtain to come in front of it. So I think we have to make stars of our teams.
Yes, perfect. Great point.
Takeaway. So, Lisa, how can we get in touch with you? How can we connect? How can we see more about the Content Marketing Institute and the great work that you do?
Thank you. I'm on Twitter at Lisa Beats. I'm also on LinkedIn. Please feel free to connect with me, Lisa Beats. Our CMI website is contentmarketinginstitute.com, where I mentioned we have so many valuable resources. And we also have a CMI university, Rob, where people can take self-paced learning courses. Best ways to connect.
Brilliant. Good stuff. Lisa, this video will be shared across YouTube, website, blogs. I'll just learn from you and it'll be everywhere.
Thank you.
So keep an eye out for it. I'll tag you in it. I'll put the links in that you mentioned in the comments. But Lisa, thank you for spending some of your morning with us today, and I hope you have a fantastic day.
Thank you. You too.
Take care now.
You too.